Hi and welcome back to the channel on the WRX in the Shed build. Yes, it's been a few weeks since I've been able to do an update. I've been waiting on Corona Freight and thankfully we've got the bits and pieces now to sort out the brake plumbing. So let's get into it. Okay, so over the last couple of weeks we've been running some motorsport, Carnacross and Rally Sprint, and also doing a few other bits and pieces, waiting on freight. This stuff took a while to get here. It's giving us a bit of trouble still, thanks coronavirus. So what I did was, got all these U-Butte Aeroflow fittings. There's quite a few here. Went to see our friends at Better Performance Products. They were formerly called Better Value Tyres, and Tim has changed the business slightly, and now not only does he still do all the Zestino tyres, the tarmac and gravel stuff that we used to do in terms of competition tyres, he's now stocking all the Aeroflow fittings, hoses and various bits and pieces, plus also doing some of the lines of oils like the Redline oil, and I will need some of that, so I'll talk about that in a future video, and quite a few other bits and pieces as well. So now if you need to get hold of any of these sort of fittings for your race car or your competition uses, then yeah, get in touch with Tim at Better Performance. He'll be able to look after you with a great deal. Lots of whoops. Lots of packages of bits and pieces. This all looks like a confusing mess, no doubt. However, once we get into it, it'll make a bit more sense. Now, all of this stuff is going to end up in the car. I have been asked a couple of times by people, why do I use the braided lines and I don't just use the normal steel tube, what they call Bundy tube? It's a fair question, because in cars, normal cars, brake lines, they don't use any sort of stainless steel line. They just use a hard line. The thing is, the hard lines are cheaper. In the factory, it's all designed specifically for the car and bent on a jig and flared and fitted to the car during manufacture, and then it's all screwed together. And yes, you can buy the flaring tools, and I have got flaring tools, and I have got the pipe bender to do it. However, trying to get the angles correct and round bits and pieces and in the right places can prove tricky, and if you don't quite get it right with a hard line, it's very difficult. Whereas using a flexible braided line, this is what they call a -3 line. That's the size of the line. It's got a Teflon liner in it. I talked about it in the last video because I used some to do the clutch line in the car. This is basically the same stuff. It's flexible. It's easy to run where you need it to go. You can cut it to length and then terminate the ends, put the fittings on it, and happy days. Now, also with this, some people tend to use two-piece brake line setup when it comes to where the lines go onto the wheels, to kind of mimic how the factory lines work. However, I'm going to run the flexible lines all the way to the brake calipers without a join in them anywhere. And should one of those be damaged, well, it's easy enough to cut a section out and put a joiner in if needs be. But to keep it simple and to there's enough fittings here already without having any more in it that could potentially leak or give trouble. I'll try and keep the amount of fittings down. Off camera, I've made up all these brake lines already. It takes about, this took probably half an hour to cut it all out and cut the right lengths and then get all the fittings on. The banjos on the end are loose at the moment, so I can get them in the right positions. I've got basically this is the front brake line set up all here. I'll get it all in the engine bay. So now all the brake lines are all fitted up to the master cylinder. Those of you that are sharp-eyed might notice the master cylinder's actually changed. Yes, I put the later model master cylinder on it. There was nothing wrong with the earlier model one. The difference being is that I'd ordered the fittings to go onto this master cylinder, so the 90-degree fitting for the top here, and I didn't have a spare straight one, so it was just easier to change the cylinder over. I had a spare one. All of the stainless steel lines are in and run, and this is what it looks like inside the wheel arches down to the calipers. Internally, I've tucked the brake line through the old air conditioning or heater port, and then brought it down. Now I have used small pieces of rubber hose just to support the tube there. I will put a P-clip on here shortly, and I have brought it through and terminated it to the brake bias valve. Also discovered there's another little drama here. The previous fittings I used were a different brand, and the Aeroflow ones are just slightly longer, which is no big problem, except at this end here it would mean that the hose would actually end up catching on the hydraulic handbrake. So what I had to do was elongate the holes. I've got it all loose at the moment, so that I can get the lines fitted up there, and then I will tighten that all into place. And I've worked it out. There's enough clearance. There's about 3 or 4 mil of clearance to get past the end of the hydraulic handbrake assembly there, so nothing too serious. Also, there was another drama here with this fitting. Now, on these handbrake master cylinders, it doesn't sort of matter where you buy them from, but particularly these eBay ones, the threads in them are not the best sometimes. Now, oddly, they actually have a imperial thread here, and sometimes they have an imperial thread here, and sometimes they have a metric thread here. Now, imperial it's 7/16, and metric it's 11/1, I think, from memory, and this is actually a 7/16 bolt, so banjo bolt. So there was a bit of mucking around there to get that all together and get it sorted. I did have the correct bolt for it. The other thing is that the banjo fitting that I had was actually a 10mm or 10.5mm banjo fitting, so I just had to run a drill through that and just open it up to 11mm to allow me to get the bolt in. And I had to do the same with the copper washers, which was a bit of mucking around. It's not easy to do that, and I'm hoping that's going to seal okay. If not, I'll get the next size up banjo fitting, and that should all go together. But I've done this before and haven't had too much drama with it. All right, so on with making the line that comes out of here and goes into the master cylinder, and then worry about doing the rear brake plumbing, and it should be all done. Okay, that's the fittings all made up. I've also drilled a hole through for the brake lines to go through the rear wheels, because normally these will all run under the car. Also, because these threads can be a bit sad sometimes and not as good as they possibly should be, I also like to run a little bit of thread tape around these banjo fittings just to make sure that they're going to tighten up okay in these master cylinders. Occasionally I have had these things leak. And so that's what the final product looks like when it's all in. Okay, so some great progress getting the brake system all plumbed in, and I've got it bled as well. I didn't show that on camera, however, I've got a preliminary bleed done on it already. One tip I will say with these things is to make sure with these kinds of fittings that you check, double check, triple check, and then check again to make sure there are no leaks. There's lots of fittings and lots of hoses and potential for leaks. Generally, they just need a nip up. So far, so good with this one. Fingers crossed it doesn't leak, and I will be checking that again in the next day or so, and it will probably need another quick bleed. I also need to do a bit of adjustment, like the hydraulic handbrake isn't quite set right yet, so I'll show that on a future video. Anyway, with all the major systems now done, means I can get on and do the 100 other things that need to be done, probably start with the interior and also get all the panel work done, and get this thing ready to go racing. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the WRX of the Shed build. Sorry it's taken such a long time to update it. It's unfortunately freight's been holding me up. So hopefully we can get through them a bit quicker in the future. Please like, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And thanks to everybody that's new that subscribed, and also all the comments and feedback that I've got everywhere. I'll be happy to catch you again on the next episode. So thanks again. Cheers.